Good day everybody, it's Max and welcome back to Facteroids Tips Tutorials, and today it's all about them colonists. That's right. And in making colonists, what do you need? The spice must flow, but in this case, it's the ice that must flow. You need a lot of ice, and that ice you're going to turn into water, which is going to be used by the colonists directly, as well as turning it into oxygen and hydrogen. Now, once you have those two ingredients, you also need water for concrete, because colonist buildings can only be made on concrete blocks, and you're going to need 8 of them. So you need at least 800 concrete for the 5 colonists, your supply hub, your trade hub, and your research hub. Let's get into it and have a look at them colonists. Today's tips tutorial is on colonists. And the first lesson you're going to learn about colonists is, if in Dune the spice must flow, in Facteroids the ice must flow. Without ice, you are in deep trouble in trying to get anything to work with colonists. So you need a large supply of ice coming in at any one time to make this work. And I'm tapped into 2 major ice fields at the moment. And at the same time, if you were doing a free game, like you'll notice you have a free game option out in the menu, I would make sure that a good chunk of that asteroid is ice, especially if you plan to run colonists on it. If you're doing a straight factory build as a free game, that's fine. But just to let you know that with colonists, the ice must flow, and you need a lot of ice. So let's now talk about colonists themselves. In the end, we're going to need 5 colonists. Now, at this point in the time in the game, I'm up to 5 colonists as a need. Now, I don't know if later I'll need even more colonists, because if that's the case, I could be in big trouble. I'm using a lot of ice just to keep 5 colonists alive, right? But in this case, what does it take to keep 5 colonists going? Well, again, you need ice, and you need ice for actually 2 things. One, colonists inbound have 2 need items. They need oxygen and they need water. So obviously we're going to use that ice for both. Now, the first thing we're using the ice for is direct water to the colonists, and you make water in refineries. Now, I had these all set up top, but I still ran out of room, so I have them here on the side. This water here is only for the colonists, and the nice part is that you don't have to run belt piping for these. Like, I don't actually need these 2 pieces of pipe here to make this work. Refineries will pipe water through themselves to actually their destination. So I really only needed this 1 piece of pipe here, but these pieces were here from something else I'll explain in a minute, and so they're just leftovers. So we have ice coming in, we have water coming out. The formula, of course, is a direct 1-to-1 relationship, so this is a 3-lane item. You need 1 inbound lane of ice, and you don't even need the outbound lane of pipe until the very last machine, until the one machine that you're going to actually pump to your colonists, all right? It's actually very nice that way. Now, the other use for that water is to make their oxygen needs. Now, refineries making the oxygen hydrogen are a 4-lane system. You'll have 1 lane of input, which is the water, so you can see here, I have ice being changed into water, and that water being directly pumped in to the refinery. So this first refinery would be considered my lane 1 of my refinery / factory tutorial. So this is lane 1. Lane 2, of course, is usually your factory or your refinery that's going to actually make the product, and the mid zone, which is going to hold the first product. Then lane 3 is my second product. And then, of course, lane 4 is going to handle the output of this middle piece. So in this case, of course, we have water coming into the refinery, making oxygen and hydrogen. The hydrogen we're going to use for our rocketry program. Boom, over there. And the oxygen is going to be used for the colonists. I hope I said hydrogen for the rocketry program, because that's what that's supposed to be. Hey, look at that. We got people working. They should be. So, of course, once you've got your 2 outbound lanes of oxygen and hydrogen, and of course, we don't want them crisscrossing each other, so we're using our bridging, right, to make sure that there's no mixing of the streams. Mixing the streams is really, really bad. We don't want that. So we, of course, then have the actual colonist needs themselves. Now, before I actually talk about the colony buildings, let's talk about this leftover pipe I have here, because it's here as a reminder. Before you get into making hydrogen and oxygen, you need concrete. And you need about 800 of that concrete. It turns out you can use this same build setup that you're now using for hydrogen and oxygen as concrete. But concrete's a 2 input, 1 output stuff, whereas this is a 1 input, 2 output stuff, right? What you do is you use lane 3 to make the change. So these would be set up as concrete makers, water and rock. Use lane 3 to import your rock. You already got your water coming in on the left. Use lane 3 to import your rock on the right. Then use lane 4 as your output for that concrete. Okay? You'll need 800 concrete to fill in all these holes. So the 5 colonists plus the supply depot plus comms and research. Then, once you've gotten all your concrete down, you then switch these buildings over to hydrogen oxygen makers, cut the stone off of this line, and reverse the lines to be now output lines for your oxygen. And that way you can now use these as a dual output line with a single input for that water. That way you don't have to mess with the water at all. You're good to go. And you've now gotten the concrete, and away it went. So this little bit of piping was left over from when I was making some concrete earlier. All right. So in this case, we now have the hydrogen, and the hydrogen is coming out. The oxygen is coming out. We like to see the oxygen backlogged. If the rocket's launching faster than you need the oxygen, that's great. Because let me tell you, the ice must flow, and when you have 5 colonists, they will eat through the ice really, really fast. So that is important. Now, the first building you need for colonists is a supply hub. The supply hub is going to take your input of oxygen and water, and it also outputs waste. The waste output line we'll talk about at the end, because it's actually very humorous. So we'll talk about that output line. So as you can see, I have an output line for my waste, which comes down here to this factory. We're going to get to that in a minute. Now, once you have water and your oxygen coming into the supply hub, we of course can then hook together our first 3 habitats. Now you need 3 colonists with their needs demands met, which is power, oxygen, water, and then the output of waste, to work in the comm center. Now, your communications center is, of course, where you're going to come in here and do call-in supplies, which means you can just call in like a bucket of supplies, or you're going to do trade deals, which is usually what you're doing on a mission, right? You're going to trade a thing that you have a lot of for something that you have none of. And one of the missions, of course, in this case, this mission is you have lots of iron, you need silicon, so you're going to trade all your iron off for silicon, right? So then you would make your trade deal. Once your trade deal's done, the 3 people don't need to keep working here. You've made your deal, right? You'll see a progress bar come up here, and what it is you're going to offer. So, like, if I'm going to offer my iron for silicon, okay, and I'm going to demand silicon out of that. Once the bar is done, you can have them 3 people go off and work somewhere else. So that's where we're actually going to have a look at these 2 habitats. Once I've got my comm center and I've got my rocketry program running, I've now if I really want to get fancy, I can add 2 more colonists. Again, you've got to have the water supply to handle that and the oxygen supply to handle that. Now I can have a look at transferring these 3 guys plus my 2 new guys into doing research. And research allows you to do bot speeds, computer belt speeds, and this is why they have belt input lines. You would have to hook these up with different lines of input to actually bring in so as the research could be done, right? In this case, it wasn't needed for this mission, but it just happens to be here, so we're going to talk. It's all available. Now, of course, that output of hydrogen we're using for the rocketry program. The rocketry program, again, if your guys have done a great job with their negotiation deal, once they've got the deal made, you just use the deal, right? We don't want to cancel the trading, so I won't do that. But you would select in here what trade it is they're supposed to be doing, and then that's what he'll do. He'll just keep launching up and down as long as he's got enough hydrogen to keep going to get me my silicon, right? So he's going to take the iron, which we're actually out of at the moment, and that's probably because my miners probably ran out. If I look all the way back here, yep, the miners are gone. All right, that's okay. I'm not too worried about this mission is a finished mission anyway, so that's fine. We would have my iron coming in here, and of course he would launch that off. And, of course, he would bring back silicon, and it would spit out that other line, and then, of course, go into these factories, and life is good. So, in this case, this is a colony. A colony will require lots of water, okay? It tends to be a 1-to-1 ratio. So, in this case, I've got enough oxygen going on for 5 colonists. I've also got enough water for 5 colonists, so that's 10 refineries. That's a lot of ice you're using to make a colonist work, right? Then you're going to stick in your supply hub, your first 3 colonists, and then your trade depot. Then, once you're done with your trades, your 2 more colonists and your research hub, if research is going to be a thing you do, and make sure the ice keeps flowing. I almost forgot to mention our waste production. So again, remember, waste is being generated by your buildings and is coming out of the supply hub. And of course, as mentioned earlier, it is coming down this little track. Now, the funny thing is that you can get rid of waste in a factory. It will take 4 unidentified things and turn it into waste. Those unidentified things can also be waste. So you can take 4 waste and turn it into 1 waste, which then, if you just recycle it on itself, it will take 3 new waste plus the waste it generated and make 1 waste. So you can actually have 3 waste coming out of this thing all the time, and it will magically get rid of those 3 wastes by recycling it on itself and making 1 waste. So this is the top build for making a colony. So of course we've got the ice must flow, and the ice must flow to make us the water for the colony and make the oxygen for the colony, and then of course that goes into the supply hub, which then feeds your first 3 colonists, and of course then they make a trade deal, and then you get 2 more colonists, and you can do research in your research hub. And of course, keeping that little waste facility on the side with this little factory, just doing an infinite loop on itself is actually really convenient. It works out really well. You're going to use all that hydrogen for a rocket program. Trade for whatever you need. That's the best part about having the colonists here. You trade for things, and you can trade away certain things and see if you can't make trade deals for other things. And of course, certain missions will require certain objects to be traded. I'm Max. This, of course, has been a tips tutorial for Facteroids Colonists. You know it. We got the trade hubs, we got the research center, we got your colonists in, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.